Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. We would like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Graybeard Publishing, and of course, Sheepdog Response. No doubt that also Enlisted 9 Fight Company, our prime sponsor, and one day we're going to get around to get off this Bush League intro and get them re-recorded as they should be. Welcome everyone to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, February 7th, almost said 27th, February 7th, 2019. This is episode 154. Thank you for joining us, and as you can see, we have a special in-studio guest with Toby in the Southern Studio. Hey, Toby, how you doing, brother?
Well, you know, I'm, how are you now? Are you good?
Good, and you?
Yeah, good.
No, you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
No,
Remember,
living the dream here in the southern, how's the weather up there? We had a little bit of a cold snap come through today, and it dipped us down to about 59.
really? We were in the 50s
almost
yesterday.
Put my 511 jacket on, but I was like,
We were in the 50s yesterday. We are now dropping down to 20 tonight.
Oh, you had just a hot streak there, didn't you?
We did. Yes.
Almost like your hockey team.
Almost like our hockey team. That's right. They had a hot streak, and there's still a chance. But yes, we are doing good up here in the Northern Studio. Glad to be in the studio and not on the road traveling, which has been a lot lately. And glad to see you in the studio and at home. Probably, I'm sure your family's glad of that. And thank you for everyone that has welcomed us into your homes on this evening. And Toby, why don't you give us a little bit of info? What's going on there in the Southern Studio? It looks a little bit different.
Well, we have a different angle going. I'm noticing now in retrospect that I got my tuna flag hanging up in the back and random bottles of rum and some boxes.
I see an American flag bottle back there or something like that. That looks very patriotic.
Yeah, no, like that would be the pelagic. Got it hanging out there next to the tuna.
There we go.
But no, everything's going well here. We are excited to have a full week is a real time of year. But we're to the tail end of veteran outdoor stuff, and in terms of hunting, the quadruped season is drawing to a close. So now that antlers are falling off, we're not doing as much of that. So that's exciting and getting ready for the new things. But the biggest thing is, we're enjoying gas that's under $2, and we're driving a few extra miles as a result. Gas is at $1.80 right now in the Republic, the Lone Star. What's it in New York right now?
About $2.50. Not too bad. It's not what it is in California, I guarantee you that.
Well, I tell you, if you're driving an F-250 and you're putting $2.50 worth of gas in it, America.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I got the 150 and I'm putting $1.80 in it. EcoBoost, baby. EcoBoost.
That's it. But, so the Great Republic of Texas is doing well. It's warm, and gas prices are cheap. You just got that big exposed southern border down there that nobody wants to block up. But,
Yeah, so awkward you bring that up, because that's a topic of concern. And, the latest is that there's, we have a new caravan coming that's about 3 times the size of the previous caravan, and it's coming right for Texas because they figure that's closer. And unfortunately, the state of Texas, the Republic of Texas, does not share the same views in terms of state-sponsored security as other states do, even though obviously border security is a federal issue. The governor of Texas the Honorable Greg Abbott said he would not stand, and that's not just because he's in a wheelchair. He said he would not stand for a single member to illegally cross the border and for us to be bullied into immigration.
No pun intended, and I'm glad that did not turn into a Biden gaffe, because I thought that's where you were going with that one. So I'm glad.
No.
Yeah. Good. Oh, speaking of borders, our friends north of the border, Canada, make a great beer called Labatt Blue. I'm drinking this in honor of you tonight, my Canuck friend. And
well, in honor of you, we're gonna have some America bourbon.
That's how we roll. We are international. It's our international flair. We go back and forth.
With a little Ranger Up cup. Rob's gonna have some.
There we go. Rob,
and I'm gonna drink the empty bottle.
There we go. So you mentioned Rob there in studio. Why don't you give us a little introduction of who you got?
Well, I'm gonna let him do that because he's a producer.
He is,
and everyone knows that producers wear big boy pants, and they can do it themselves.
The unpaid Rob, the unpaid producer.
The unpaid.
Go ahead.
Well, usually producers are not seen. They're behind the scene and they're heard. I definitely have a face for radio. And a voice for silent movies. So, yeah, I live here in Austin, not too far from Toby. I appreciate you guys having me in. This is fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity.
The chat rooms can be quieter because at least the Facebook chat rooms can be quieter.
It is very quiet. We have some people coming in there, but no one's talking.
Yeah, and I don't have the other ones pulled up. All I have is Facebook pulled up. So
yeah, it's the other ones.
The other one that's on the other stuff that we're not monitoring.
Yeah, we get a little bit on YouTube, but not too much. But I'll try to bring those up through our high-speed technology software that we use that allows us to do that. But
the old Restream.
Yeah.
Well, let's hop into it. Pitter patter.
Let's get at it.
Let's talk about the State of the Union.
Let's talk about that. And if anyone, unless you just came from a overseas trip of where you had no connectivity or anything else, then you probably saw or heard there was a State of Union this week. A week late, as a matter of fact. Delayed a week because the government shut down. Very interesting. We saw that back and forth that of, the Speaker of the House removing, not inviting the president to, because she has to invite him to speak at the House. There was a lot of back and forth whether he was going to do it somewhere else, but he saved it to there. And there was a lot of pros and cons and people on both sides, especially on the right, that thought he should have did it somewhere else. He should have gave the big finger to D.C. and went, somewhere in the heartland and did it. But, like a lot of things, he's calculating what he does. And I think the impression, the image he wanted to give, he achieved by doing it, waiting and doing it in the House, than doing it, surrounded by tens of thousands in a stadium or something. And because I think it showed the true character of people on both sides of the aisle. So I think it was. I want to start with that, and I think it was good that he waited. He did it in the House. He did it in front of Congress. It may have been a week late, but that's okay because a lot of things that haven't happened the normal way. And I think it showed. And I think it showed people got to see who sat on their hands and what they sat on their hands for. I'll kind of start with that. What do you think about that, Toby?
So first and foremost. Let's just go ahead and make sure that everyone understands that there's no playbook. There's no, hey, you have to do this. The State of the Union address originated as a letter from the president to the legislative branch.
I think it was Jefferson, right? Rob, do you know? Was it Jefferson?
That may be right. I'll have to verify that.
Yeah, it was it was Jefferson.
But then, then it became a in-person speech, and then it became a primetime extravaganza. So all this, I'm not going to let you do it in my house, or I'm going to do it elsewhere. That's what's that? That really bad caramel popcorn, the poppycock, like that's what that is. Like the bottom line is the president is supposed to address the legislative branch. If he wants to do it in the Senate, that's his business. If he wants to do it, while they're all seated around him elsewhere, that's his business. But the bottom line, the address is to the people that they represent, but it's to them. And so holding it in the house, I think is appropriate. I'm glad he waited. Who cares that due to somebody's calendar, it wasn't held on the date that they felt it should be held on? Because that's really irrelevant. The essence of it is that it is to them, for the people, to the people, and let's look at the message. Unfortunately, I think too many people get caught up in like the dramatics of it, and I blame e-television, I blame MTV, and I blame all the bullshit shows and channels that focus on the hoopla of an event versus the virtue of the event. So like, it's this red carpet thing. Like, what are they wearing?
All right.
Like, good for them. You know, like, no disrespect. One of my favorite movies that I watched last year with my wife up in the movie room, which you're familiar with, the Warrior Media Center, Suffragette. Great stuff. Love it. Love to see, you know, when one of the proudest moments going through my final board at Audie Murphy was, you know, they were trying to grill me on, you know, my understanding of the United States Constitution. And I had to laugh because they like forgot that I was a guy trying to study for citizenship. And they were like, what's the 19th Amendment? I'm like, women's suffrage! You know, like, you know, I think that's awesome. And I think it was fitting, you know, that
you're speaking of the white dresses, right? That mostly Democrat women wore.
I'm speaking of, you know, the white dresses. So I think that stuff's cool, but I don't think that we need to make that a big deal. And I don't mean downplaying women's suffrage, and I don't mean downplaying the record number of women serving in the House of Congress. What I mean is, it's not about what people wear. It's not about how atrocious Ted Cruz's beard was, because it was, for the record, Texan saying, Ted, hey, do something with that beard. Looked like he had horns coming out of his chin.
He did. It was like he had these, like, I don't know what that was.
That's the most. But for the record, the reason he was sitting there and got the TV time that he got was because our main man from Texas, one of the greatest veterans and the best advocate for veterans in the state of Texas, Rick Perry, was the designated survivor. I bet somewhere he was like having a glass of brown water going, they get all that tonight, and it's cool.
It's mine. It's all mine. Yeah.
Like, you know,
he's like, I saw the show. I watched it. I got that all over. I'm all over that. Yeah. No, it's you bring up the white dresses. I want to hit on that real quick. Yeah, it you know, it kind of got me, I guess, a little bit of a, I don't know if it's an irony, or I'm not sure the right term to use, but they first stated that this was all done to recognize or stand with women for equal pay and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of ironic because every one of them makes equal pay as the men that are serving next to them in the House or the Senate. They all make the same amount of money. Whether they just came from being a bartender in Brooklyn or they've served so long that, you know, the dust is collecting on them, Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, that they all make the same equal pay. So it was you know, it was good that they were honoring the suffrage movement from over 100 years ago. Awesome. I'm not sure that you know, doing that so that you became this big mass of people in the middle was something worth. I mean, they knew the cameras were going to be on. Everyone knew cameras were going to be on Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Ocasio-Cortez and all the ones that are getting themselves in front of it. That every TV's in love with, you know, right now. So they didn't need that. But it was just, I just thought it was a little weird that they were doing it for equal pay and equal rights, and yet they are completely paid equally as everyone to their left.
Well, it's a political version of the Golden Globes to see who can upstage who.
Yeah. No, like even and that's why I blame E! Entertainment. Yeah. That's why I blame ESPN, MTV, all the networks that claim that they represent something that they don't. And it's not about the pomp and circumstance. Let's talk about the message. Let's talk about what it is. Like, you know, who cares if the person wears a red tie or a blue tie, or the fact that the vice president has one color and the president has another color. Like, this subtle nuance has nothing to do with the message. And I think what was delivered, like, and everyone that watches the show, listens to the show, and we appreciate all your support, continue to subscribe, knows that I'm a middle of the road guy, knows that, like, I'm not the biggest, Trumper, and I'm not the biggest other sider. And, like, that's right.
I'm not sure
I'm
what
not
other cider is, but yeah, I got
the
you.
other sider.
I got you.
I'm not the other sider.
Yeah.
But he laid down a unifying message. And people have always criticized him about, like, well, he's not saying words to unify. He's not saying words of encouragement. Like, he stood up there and congratulated the members of Congress, especially, in terms of, like, we were talking about gender a few moments ago. Like,
right.
He, like, congratulated them and applauded them.
He got them to stand up and yell USA, USA, the left. Which is
awkward.
They talked, it's funny because before he even spoke, a lot on the left were already coming out slamming his speech before they even had an embargoed copy of it, before they saw it. Because they said he was going to talk about unity, this and that. And he really did. I don't know how many times. I'm sure someone fact-checked that on as far as statistically checked how many times he talked about unity. But he did talk about it. And if you look at what he brought forward, there were things there for everyone. From combating AIDS to human trafficking to just a number of things, the security. He didn't just bring out the full right agenda and say it's all about this, or like past president, bring out nothing but the left agenda. He brought out left, right, and center, and then also really took a big chunk of it, in my opinion, the last 10 minutes, which I thought was some of the best speaking I ever heard, and it was about no agenda. And it was just talking about our country. And I said, I was just like jaw dropped those last 10 minutes hearing that and just hear what he was saying. Cause it was all about America as itself, and we're going to be the greatest, and we are the greatest. And it was pushing forward no political agenda at all. Right. And so I don't know how anyone could think he came from that. It was, Ocasio-Cortez and others said it was and other Booker said all these things about it, how it wasn't a real speech and it was this and that. Like, he brought out a lot of stuff. Did he cover everything? No, he couldn't cover absolutely. Nobody want to watch him for 3 hours.
So,
but he covered a lot.
So you just touched on something really important. So you have people coming out, mainly people posturing for the next election. Guys like Booker, for instance, some of the comments that he made, making comments about the speech. Here's the thing: it's not a speech. It's a briefing. It's a report.
It is. Yeah.
Right.
It's a big hot wash. It's a big hot wash.
Now we have, and this is one of the reasons why I think Trump resonates so well with so many different people. In the past, we've had beautiful orators get up in front of reading teleprompters and saying fantastical things. Like just getting up there and telling the biggest fish story that they can tell, to make themselves look good. And it's just a continuation of the campaign. Everyone's running for the student body president. There's going to be no homework. Everyone gets pizza for every meal. The streets are paved with cheese if you're a rat. There's no cats in America. Whatever, the speech is going to be, they lay out the speech.
Right.
He didn't lay out a speech. He laid out the State of the Union. And he said, this is where we're at. This is how many jobs have been created. Like, this is not like rhetoric.
Right.
This is how many jobs have been created. Let me break it down demographically. So in, some of our harder hit demographics in the past 2 administrations, I dare say 3, like low income demographics, have been hit hard. The lower middle
minorities
class. And if you want to look at it racially, we're talking about Latinos, we're talking about African Americans, we're talking about white, Caucasians, we're talking about Asians. And he broke it down, boom, 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 boom. This is how much increase we have. In fact, we have the highest statistical average to date.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
You know, so he laid out an actual factual state of the union.
And it was strong. It was strong too. That's why the other side couldn't fight that much. They couldn't say much
this is
about
how many manufacturing jobs
Right.
have been returned to this country. And then after he laid out all those facts, he then, like a very basic MLA or APA laid out, you know, essay that you would write in school, he's like, and here are my 3 supporting paragraphs.
Yeah.
You know, like, the reason why we have more manufacturing jobs in America than, you know, that we had in the past, you know, 2 decades is because we laid sanctions down on this government.
Or we cut regulations.
He also said, like, hey, I respect China's leadership for what they're trying to do because they want China to succeed.
Right.
Like, you know, like, and the best part about it is he presented it in such a way that he made people remember that the word great has meaning that has nothing to do with him.
And is not a bad word to say. There's nothing wrong with
great
doing that. Right.
Means to be better than good.
Yeah, it's amazing too because you mentioned the ladies in white there, who sat on their hands for just about everything, including you know, trying to end human trafficking and child prostitution. But they jumped up. But they jumped up and clapped when they talked about themselves. When it talked about them being great, it all became about them, and they're high fiving, and they're doing raising the roof, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It again showed the American people. I know we kind of like roll our eyes and stuff, and rightfully so, but it showed the American people kind of the character of which they are. They could not stand and clap talking about whether it's with a wall or not, but you know, they couldn't stand and clap a ICE agent who spent his life rescuing girls, and the president gave stats and numbers of the number of girls and women he's rescued from human bondage and human trafficking and rape and stuff. They couldn't even stand and clap him just because he's an ICE agent, right? Someone that has saved somebody, could be just like them, could save their daughter, could save a relative. And they couldn't, you know, we talk about abortions, you know, up to the moment of birth, if not after, in the state of Virginia. You know, and he talked about that not being right, and the sanctity of human life when a baby feels pain and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's amazing how they just that's, you know, it's all about the children, except when it's about children aren't born.
So you brought up a wonderful point that I kind of want to circle back on.
Go ahead.
Threw a lot, you know, we're like, that was a fire hydrant information right there. You can't applaud a man, and I'm using that specifically. You cannot applaud a man that has fought and dedicated his life and career to helping women. You can't applaud him because that's like taking Kavanaugh's side. You can't applaud him because he belongs to an agency that you feel is counter to your future potential voting demographic. Like, you can't applaud a guy that has saved daughters, sisters, wives' life. Now, a lot of people have criticized him on his previous rhetoric, and I'll use that term because I think it's appropriate, on how he's talked about immigration, specifically immigrants. Because in his own words, his own vernacular, his own jargon, his own, you know, stream of consciousness, he has lumped in the bad and the good together. He has. He hasn't done himself any favors in that. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he hasn't done himself any favors. In that speech, it was very clear that he loved immigrants. He loved the idea of immigration, and the fact that he did not get applauded for saying that, in fact, doubling the numbers of immigrants coming in was on his radar. Like, everything that they're saying, this fear-mongering that they're saying against him, he dispelled in that speech.
Right.
So, like, I'm not anti-immigration. In fact, I want to double the amount. Double the amount.
I mean, he's married to an immigrant. I mean, he benefits. His life is more whole because of someone going through the immigration process, right? So,
yeah. Oh no, like,
You know, it's not like he's married to a 6-foot blonde, blue-eyed,
No. I salute our first lady.
Yes, and I want to say before I want to ask Rob, but before that I want to highlight of all the people you saw, whether it was the bad Ted Cruz beard, generals with the ribbons upside down, or whatever it may be, and we'll get on that too. Is I think the highlight, besides the singing of the Happy Birthday, which I was like in my living room going, this is a historic first time ever moment, was the first lady in all of her class. And the guests that she had with her, that of course the president invites, was the highlight. What a representation, dude! I'll admit it. Tears in my eyes when you got a Holocaust survivor from Dachau sitting next to a guy who helped rescue the people from Dachau. And as we've had the guests we've had on our show, whether it be Lauren Bruner or Paul Schillo or whoever, to have still those guys around, and he has them up there, and side by side. Beside and the other gentleman that survived the synagogue shooting, who was also a Holocaust survivor. I mean, the guest he brought, the young girl that survived, fought cancer. I mean, to me, was the highlight.
So, I want to get back to the World War II guys.
There's so much to talk about. I know. Yeah.
I want to get back to them, but first, because I think again this was subtle but impactful. That little girl, that has that new breath of life in her, that sat there as darling and as cute as all our daughters could ever be, sat in his son's seat. Now, in the past, the media have ridiculed his son unfairly just for being his son.
Right.
That young man, that young boy, whatever lottery genetically he got into, whatever, God reached down and said, you're the one, that has nothing to do with him. And all the ridicule that Barron has got in the past, for him to yield his seat to that young girl and to give that opportunity, to someone basically in his peer group, in his generational peer group, that's huge.
Yeah.
Where everybody else would be like, and now think of the first lady, how selfless is that? Where typically when you think historically of leaders, especially mothers who are leaders, they're looking out for their son as heirs. They're looking out for their sons, be it a queen looking out for the prince, right. I must protect. Think of all the people watching Games of Thrones, or pull any Vikings, pull any show you want, historical docudrama, they're all about the mother, and everyone's like, that's a great mom. Look at what she did, where she's like, I want this little girl next to me so she can be loved, comforted, in our area, respected, and let's honor her, and our son can forgo this.
Right. Yeah. But big props to the other little boy last name Trump, who of course became viral because he just knocked out, just passed out. But which was...
so he was the target of the media. They made fun of him for falling asleep.
Yeah. I mean,
but so you have these little things, but then let's go to the World War II guys. Last year, we had the wife of the recently fallen Navy SEAL, where he got wonderful applause. But since then, America's kept its promise. And when I say America, I don't mean one man. I mean hundreds of millions of people have made the promise to the nation state of Israel that they would move the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and this has been, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter if you were wearing white. It doesn't matter if you had a red tie. It doesn't matter if you had a blue tie on. America, the people of America, with their ballots, with their mouths, with their hands, with their pens, with their mouse clicks, have all said, move it. He did that.
The last 4 or 5 presidents said they were going to move it. Ever since
he did
Reagan,
that.
Right?
he did that. Now, if there was a moment of gloating, that might have been it. That might be the only moment of gloating that he really enjoyed or relished in up there. But America kept its promise.
I think there were two. I think the if it wasn't for me being president, we'd be in war with Korea right now. I think that was that was a pretty gloating moment.
There was that too. There was that too. But I'm just looking at the chat room, and like Amy's like Cruz's beard wasn't that bad. Well, like it had character. We'll give it that. We'll say it had character. But no, the America spoke, and then to bring in those guys, right? Dachau, liberator of Dachau, the synagogue shooting, to tie these guys in was masterful, appropriate, and then you saw America's response. Tell me you didn't sing Happy Birthday.
Oh, absolutely.
If you tell me you didn't sing Happy Birthday, one, I'll call you a liar. And two, like if you didn't sing Happy Birthday, you're just a self-righteous piece of S.
Yeah.
Because I sang along.
And then he got to yell out thank you, and it was totally appropriate yelling out in the speech to say thank you, right?
Yeah.
And
no, like that was historical, but that was unifying. That was
right. One of the few times it was in that speech.
That was Christians. That was Jews. That was Islam. All the people represented.
And some atheists, I'm sure.
And held hands at that moment. And so when people tell me like, oh, Trump, like that wasn't unifying, that opportunity. And here's the point I want to make. People wanted to rob America of that opportunity. And it's not about him. It's about our country. It wasn't the state of Trump. It's not the state of Trump's hair. Otherwise, like it'd have been called whatever Twitter handle is, like at Trump's hair, at bad hair, whatever it is. It's the State of the Union. And the Union is strong. And the Union is compassionate. And the Union is joyful. And the Union's grateful. And it demonstrated that in those simple moments of a man that jumped out of the sky and fought for years in foreign lands to stand next to and help up a man that survived, another man that joined IDF. That, all of that was wonderful.
Yes.
Masterful, but appropriate, because that is America.
Right. And spinning that in. And what's amazing, I think part of it is
it wasn't spun in. It was there.
Right, but interweaving it into the speech, so it wasn't all all at once. He started from the get-go. In the first couple minutes, he highlighted the first guests because they were all had a connection to what he wanted to talk about. He put a face to all the topics that he wanted to talk about with the State of the Union. He talked about a grieving mom, a daughter, granddaughter from an MS-13 murder. He talked about the synagogue shooting. So he talked about things that people would say, well, the right would never talk about because of guns, and this kind of stuff. So it wasn't he was saying anti-gun. He was saying anti-violence and anti-murdering a-holes, right? So from the get-go, he had those in there. So it wasn't just him talking. He was redirecting the attention to a face, to a person, to a human, that someone could say, okay, that's someone that's affected by whatever he's talking about, right? Whether it's they were killed by an illegal alien, or they were had this happen, or they're fighting cancer or whatever. So that piece, I think, was awesomely architected in the fact that he could have just went up there and talked, and everyone just watched him and been like, yeah, whatever. He talked, 50, this much money's needed, or these many people are affected. But I think it left a lasting effect by seeing faces, by seeing tears, by seeing, when have you ever known a Republican to do prison reform to get people out of prison? And that lady, I think her name's Alice Johnson, I think it was right, Johnson. up there crying, talking about what she went through. She made a mistake, yeah. But, he did the right thing, talking, someone from Hollywood, someone from what we would always refer to the Kardashians being the ultimate imagery of what's wrong with this country as far as self-absorbed and all that stuff. But someone from that side coming to him and making this case, and him being open enough to listen. So everyone acts like he's Hitler, he's this, he's a wall, he don't want to work with it, he don't want to negotiate. He took a case and a topic that no Republican ever would have ever taken up, and made it and got it passed into law, and then had her there saying, hey, and oh, by the way, here's this other guy who just got out of prison, who just got
the first dude.
The first dude, right? No pressure, no pressure. But
yeah. Right, but hey, here's the reason why, and here's the benefit.
Right.
That. Someone sent me a message and said, hey, this is the most democratic speech I've ever heard. And I remember that same person might have sent me the same message about something Bush said a few years back. They were like, I remember the W's last Day of the Union, he was like a drunken Democrat. But
with the AIDS funding and the stuff in Africa and everything.
They're like George W. is a drunken Democrat. But no, but the thing is how do you not get behind that?
Right. Yeah.
You want to talk about being progressive. Well, one of the biggest issues in America is, our ability or inability to identify some of these archaic standards. Schedule 1 drugs. There's a big difference between the opioid crisis, which leaps and bounds have been made in the past year on, which were touched on, versus the maximum minimums for marijuana.
Right. Right.
Whether, I live in the heart of Texas, so obviously this is a bastion, a holdout of, anti-weed, if you will. But nationally, there's a big movement.
I think there's a lot of people in downtown Austin that are very pro-weed, I think.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, I won't have to go far to find support, I'm sure, in Austin. But what I'm saying is, there's this large national movement to change some of the stuff. And some of these things, these maximum minimums, are kind of archaic.
Right.
They were built on this McCarthyan type mentality of commies are bad, all should die. And it's if people want to feel that way and think that way, that's fine. However, like Trump said, this country will never be this.
Right. Wasn't it, and I want to get to Rob here because he's been sitting there so patiently, but Rob, what was your thought when and did you ever think you would have to hear a president say in a State of the Union or anything that this country is never going to be a socialist country, that it would ever get to that?
No, I never thought that, or I thought that people would actually be pushing for socialism. I mean, the ones that push for socialism have never seen true socialism at work. One of the downsides of most Americans is they haven't traveled outside of the U.S. And I mean, there's a good portion that haven't even traveled outside their own state.
Yep.
True. So the United States is a very, very large country, but and until you've actually seen those types of things, put to actual in play, then it's hard to really explain it.
Right.
So for people to actually push for that, and then to try to spin it in some democratic socialist way or something else is ridiculous. So
yeah, it was amazing that he had to throw that mantra down almost and say this will never happen. Right. It was
it's almost sad that you have to.
Right. It was why would you ever have to even say that? That should be automatic. But it's what this country was built on.
But God bless him for doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But he had to, because there's this small, but there's this undertow, if you would, or push of people thinking, right? We got Ocasio-Cortez, you got Bernie, who's really brought it to the forefront, and there's a number of others that are signing up because they think that's the way to win, right? I don't think they really believe that.
Well, and that's the thing. People think that's going to help them win. they're not thinking about the country winning. They're not thinking about the country succeeding. They're thinking about them and their political career winning. And again, this is like how do I get to be the student body president? It's not like, how do I lead the school? They forget that there's principals and administrators and teachers that actually run the school.
It's free pizza for everybody.
How do I be the cool kid? How do I be the Van Wilder? Like, not everyone's like swinging around on a golf cart, giving ladies rides, from the parking lot, to their women's studies class.
Right.
Like
nice.
That's actually not how real world works.
Right. Yeah.
But, the fact that he had the audacity, and I'm using that word specifically as a jab at a previous administration, since he had the audacity to stand up and say, no, like, that's not who we are. That's not what we're founded on. Like, this is us, and we're not that. And then to look at Bernie, the camera's focused on him, and then it's like you saw
He had this.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of had he had the grumpy cat face.
Yeah, and not everyone was saying USA, but both parties were saying USA.
Right.
Like, here's the thing: you have to name your enemy. And when I say name your enemy, I mean, like, you have to call out. You have to identify your weakness. If you want to get better and you want to, like, lose weight, you have to call out. You have to name the opponent. When you get into a cage and you get into a fight, you have to know who you're fighting. You have to admit that that's your opponent. Our opponent now is radical ideas.
The socialist progressive agenda. I mean, that's yeah.
And like, one of the largest humanitarian crises that the year is going to face is coming out of Venezuela. And he identified that and said, hey, we're supporting this new, this new organization, this new administration, if you will, that's going into, Venezuela to kind of change the way, because what happened failed. These people are suffering. And, we have to back people that are willing to help humanity.
Right. Yeah.
Socialism clearly didn't help.
Nope. They took one of the richest countries there were in the Americas and had broken them down to where people are eating garbage out of the streets. I mean, it is really bad. But speaking of social, go ahead.
As the saying goes, that the mice keep going for the cheese because they don't understand why it's free. And I think the younger generation sees the cover, sees the free, but they don't understand what comes with it. They don't understand that someone is giving that to you, and that means bigger government. And any government big enough to give that to you is big enough to take it away. And which is what we saw in Venezuela. We saw them, the greed, and they took it away. And the younger generation, I don't think, quite understands why the government can't give you everything for free.
Yeah, I think that's a nice. I like that analogy though. That's a good. I think.
No, I mean, we're looking at this younger voting demographic talking about free college, and the people that want free college are the people that want their student loans, reduced, removed, forgiven, and yeah, no, like.
The state I live in, New York, just passed a law to give illegals get to go to free college here, right? But non-illegal citizens, like my own son and a lot of my old soldiers, had to join the National Guard, had to give something to the state, had to give some time up in service to maybe get their college paid for if they jump through 55 million hoops. But now anyone that's here illegally gets to go to college for free at any state school. Right, someone's got to pay. What's sad, Toby, is people, if they were to open their eyes, and it's kind of, Rob, that goes what you said, you mentioned a second ago. Not only do they not leave this country or leave their state, they don't even look beyond their country. So if you rewind about I don't know, was it 6-7 years ago in the riots in Greece? Maybe not even that long, 4 or 5 years ago in the riots in Greece, right? Greece was about ready to just implode. I mean, the place was in an upheaval, and it was what people don't realize because they didn't pay attention was that was from young college-age students, because Greece had employed, I think, around 70-75% of the people that worked in Greece worked for the government, so they were pretty much giving everyone jobs. and college was free. And all they were doing was instituting a small, like what equals maybe $1,000 a year to pay for college. And they said, no, now you got to pay. That's what the riots were about. Because once you give something to someone, you can't take it away. So they gave, everyone got to go to school for free, and they lost their flipping minds because they may have to pay a little bit. It may not.
Well, you don't have to go that far back. You can go 2 years back to the riots in France.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is like where they were asking, you know, the youth to go ahead and get jobs.
Yeah.
Like, and they trashed Paris, they trashed the city because they're like being asked to work. Now I got some teenagers in my house, and you know, I'm grateful that they're all volunteering to work.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's not going to be the kids that are going to be rioting. It's going to be the parents.
Right. Well, this is a nice segue, though. This is a nice segue because you're being willing to work. And just today, right, we know, we're going there, right? We know
we are.
that Ocasio-Cortez introduced this green happy deal, whatever you call it. I'm surprised she didn't just call it the 420 deal. Where, you know, besides all kind of stuff about
HR 420.
Yeah. Besides getting HR 420, yeah. Besides getting rid of planes in 10 years and farting cows and everything, is that, you know, everyone would get equal pay or this or that or benefits, even not only those out of work, but those unwilling to work.
So I'm going to let Rob take this, but before I hand it over to him, I'm only going to say that her counterpart, political colleague from Hawaii, simply laughed when she said, I'm going to do away with air travel. And, you know, the great senator from Hawaii was like, you could tell, she just wanted to pinch them cheeks. Because, like, she's like, well, that's not going to work out well for Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
When I would say that
they got solar
all
boats.
The cargo-bearing ships that sail the seas are probably powered by fossil fuels.
Yeah.
All the cargo-bearing vessels.
I think we got rid of sailing ships as cargo ships a long time ago.
We should have to travel by dolphin.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, hey, but, you know, how dare you indenture that great creature? But I'm going to let him take it because he actually went through, and the, you know, producer Rob, you know, he pulled it up earlier. We had it, so it's all him.
Yeah, so the text, when that was originally put in there, I think they realized their mistake, and they went back and they pulled that out. And they even pulled out the unable to work from the latest version of the text that I can find. So that was updated about 4 o'clock this afternoon. The link I have from NPR, and they've modified. So that whole thing I think is still work in progress, but the fact that it was even in there, I think is a you know a good statement as to what they're trying to do. I mean, they don't have an idea what they're trying to do.
The thing is, I saw Ocasio-Cortez in front of a microphone say the same words, so they've got her on camera saying unwilling to work.
So here's where I'm going. This is typical partisan response to supporting somebody without knowing what we're actually supporting. This is, you want to go back and talk about a health care bill, you want to go back and talk about NAFTA, you want to go back and talk about Iran, whatever you want to go and talk about. This is so-and-so said this, therefore I must endorse. And now they're like, they actually read what some like dude or dudette that was probably high as shit wrote and was like, here's the HR, you know, here's like the House resolution. Well, but some staffer like typed up some shit, like probably like on, like, I don't know, ayahuasca or something. And they were like, well, the colors are fading in, and they were on the rocket ship to the moon. They were like, this is going to be awesome. And they like hit print, handed it, went down to Kinko's, collated and copied the shit out of it. They started passing that thing around. They PDF'd it, and everyone's like, who sponsored it? OAC? Boom. I endorse. Just like, you know, the 3,500 pages that came out with, you know, like a certain healthcare bill a few years ago.
Gotta pass it.
Like, you gotta pass it so you can read it, so you'll know what's in it.
You gotta pass it so you can read it. and you have every presidential candidate, prominent presidential Democratic candidate, getting behind it, endorsing it. I bet they didn't even read it. And then all of a sudden, like, someone's like, hey, boss, it talks about people unwilling to work. Get on the phone. Yo, chick that talks too much at a party. You know, like, let's change the verbiage on that.
And while you're at it, like, can you white out the part about farting cows? I don't think we're getting rid of cows.
Okay, we got to get rid of that. I know George Clooney has, you know, made documentaries about farting cows, but like, we got to change that. Oh, and like, don't forget, we got parts of America, Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, that we got to use more than just high-speed rail to get to.
And sailing ships.
Even though Alaska is attached to North America, there's a third party you're going to have to go through there.
Yeah, and that Alcan is not much better than it was 20 years ago.
My homeland, my brother right now up in Kelowna, shout out. You know, like, he doesn't hit the herb, you know. He's probably one of the few British Columbians that, you know, plays hockey on the sober side. But even they are like, you know, like, it's easier to go over mountains than through them.
Yes.
Well, a few years ago, even Pelosi was pushing for a bigger plane so she wouldn't have to stop.
Yeah, no,
coming across the United States, she was complaining that she would have to stop midway to refuel.
I mean, the president was even concerned about the environment.
She had 92 people with her.
Yeah, he wanted her to take a commercial. Why take another plane? There's already a commercial heading that way. Just jump on a Lufthansa and you're there, right? I mean,
you can't have those conversations on Lufthansa.
Yeah, well, there's no conversation for her to have. She's with family. They're not cleared. So, you know, it's but even he was looking at it for the environment. They never brought that up when that happened. He should have said in respect to the environment, you should fly commercial. That's what he said. It should have said. But no, it's you know, that's a great example. And if you watched any of the footage today, she was in front of the microphone. She was surrounded by a whole bunch of, I mean, I don't know how to put it, a whole bunch of old white dudes that were around her like she was the coming out of the cake at the bachelor party. I mean, and they were just all giddy and smiling.
Yeah, no, like they're splashing the frosting on their faces, like, you know, like it's a Def Leppard video down there. Pour some sugar on her because like that's what's going down. But here's another 2 bits from Toby on it. This is great television. This is great entertainment. It's great parody. It's not reality, and this is why people are drawing a line and dividing.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's people right now all across this country at damn near 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock on the West Coast that are working. And they understand the value of the dollar, and they understand the value of their efforts. And no matter if they like a guy's hair or they don't like his Twitter feed or whatever, they appreciate and respect the value of the dollar. And they know that they earned it, and they don't want it taken from them.
And they don't like.
Well, they might give a few handfuls. They're generous in their hearts, and you know, when they see that person on the side of the road unwilling to work, they throw some bone at them, like out of generosity. There's a limit to that generosity, and this is why capitalism will prevail.
Yeah, it's
human nature, and you know. I love, you know, coming from a country that's fairly social, you know, I love some of the aspects of that, but I also know that those first 10 amendments, that Bill of Rights is unparalleled.
Right.
And, you know, like, but before we get too carried away with her, because, you know, like, she pulled a Brady and high-fived herself, you know, like, she's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, this if late night talk show hosts were truly satirical like they used to be 30 years ago, she would be providing unending fodder material for him. Right?
She is better fodder than Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump tries hard to be fodder.
Right.
She doesn't try. She just provides it.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to bring up, and I want to jump back to the State of the Union. before we jump to something else real fast.
Yep.
But State of the Union, Joint Chiefs, Guard Reserve Component.
Senior Guard Commander.
I was showing Rob earlier. I got the coin. It's right there on the coin rack. How many dudes and dudettes with all kinds of shiny things, subdued things, chevron, rockers, however you want to put it, let that dude get on national television and demonstrate his fourth point of contact with extreme nudity.
Dude,
come on, bro.
He brought, and remember all those awards that you get those awards, you bring great credit upon the unit, the battalion, the division, United States of America, we always have that at the end of every award, right? This guy brought great shame upon the National Guard, the Air National Guard, the Air Force, and the General Officer Corps, right? And the fact.
So, two things. One, I tried to defend him by saying, well, if you have such a rack that it's rectangular and it can be mistaken upside down, you've accomplished something. Then I was like, wait, if you truly have that box, you know everything that's on it, and you've paid a price, you've had some loss, and you've suffered, you've endured, you've persevered, and you would not ever put that on upside down.
I can't think of any dude.
I can't be like.
I can't think of anybody that would be like, oh, my Army service ribbon's at the top, my Bronze Star with V's down there in the bottom corner, right? It'd be like my Purple Heart's down there.
Why does my Bronze Star look like it's a great set of legs?
Yeah. Why is my Kuwaiti Liberation Medal?
Didn't skip leg day.
Right. Why is my Kuwaiti Liberation Medal palm tree upside down up here?
Yeah.
Well, as Toby had pointed out, I think someone set him up because he doesn't put his uniform together.
That could be.
I guarantee he doesn't put it together. But he didn't check himself either.
You know what the sad thing is? It probably was some junior enlisted airman, or maybe even because he's National Guard, could have been a soldier, who was like, hey, you got to get the old man's stuff together. Go pick it up from the cleaners, all that stuff. And they were like, hey, let's see if he notices. There's probably some
No, this is the Joint Chiefs office. There ain't anybody working in the Joint Chiefs office under Sergeant First Class.
He wears that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody had to.
That uniform.
Those are his.
Yeah, those are his.
What if his kid did it? What if his kid did it?
But he's wearing that almost every day.
What if his kid did it? He grounded him, took away his Xbox, be like, "Oh, f you, old man, I'm gonna get you." Watch it.
Right. Well, but
he owned it. He owned it. He came out and admitted it. I give him full credit for that.
Well, because what are they gonna do? Fire him?
Well, was he gonna deny it? He's not gonna be like.
But
he's not gonna be
is he gonna reprimand himself as the chief of his
Right.
He's not like he's gonna. He's not getting up there. Yeah.
Name the sec res.
He's not like he's up there denying that he was in blackface.
Name the sec res, Troy.
Yeah.
There isn't one. He didn't even have to listen to anybody. He's like, oh, you're an interim guy. Oh, whatever, dude. Right now, the chairman's like, come on, bro. But that's all he can do.
Right.
The best part is, someone duped him. He's like that quarterback, that offensive line are we'll let this big angry dude with flowing hair coming out of his helmet through and smoke you. But he owned it. But how do you own that?
Right. Well, the same way you own having a picture of you dressed in blackface next to a dude in a white hood, and you want to moonwalk across the stage.
Maybe he got into Pelosi's stash.
Yeah, great transition. But before we get there, who pointed it out? Some veterans screw a GO, right? Some bitter kid is oh, they zoomed in, freeze frame.
Wasn't that Task and Purpose that brought it?
Screen capture. Yes, that guy.
The first one I saw mentioned was Paul Sedora that mentioned it. So I don't know if he captured it.
No, I think Paul Sedora, his platform definitely carried it.
Yeah, I don't know if he caught it or not.
Some dude fed that. They were and you're That was E5 or below that sent that up.
It could have been the person who set it up. It could have been the
or the person that did it.
The person who did it.
Yeah.
But go ahead, because
So I want to make a public.
we got 10 minutes to get through Virginia.
Yeah, I want to make a public announcement here in full disclosure. There is no pictures, nor have I ever, honestly, ever dressed up in blackface, and I hope Rob or Toby, and I'm confident they never have either. So let's make sure we are clear on that. The chain of succession here is solid.
For the record,
or in a hood.
For the record, I have 2 black children. Just so we're clear.
Yeah, that's
two of my 4 children are black.
So I mean, this is. Man, I heard Senator Warner say it the other day, yesterday or today, who's from Virginia. Like, this is a bad time to be a Virginian. Like, this is, one of them was bad, right? And then you know the governor, and then the lieutenant governor, and then this sexual assault thing came out, and boy, the Democrats have made the bed, and they got to sleep in it now after the Kavanaugh hearing. They have a lot of hypocrites going up right now. But then the attorney general, and at least he came out and admitted it first, but it was just like, what is going on in Virginia? They collapsed faster than the Third Reich. I mean, they dropped quick.
So, here's the thing. If you are already corrupt, the tower of cards will fall. You know, like, now that we have social media, now that we have this fast transfer or exchange of information, now that we communicate in this anonymous doxing way, like, you have to expect that if someone has something, they're just going to drill it into the ground, because you now have the protection of anonymity. You have the ability to, like, take down the king without having to wield your own sword. And now we'll start with the governor. He did it to himself. That gentleman said some things that it doesn't matter where you are religiously. It doesn't matter what your faith is, where you stand with faith. He made commentary on the taking of human life that has nothing to do with abortion.
Right.
He talked about
murdering
human life. And he talked about it in a laissez-faire, cavalier manner, that it was like, it's just a matter of, we're going to revive somebody, we're going to make him comfortable, and then we're going to take him out.
Like they're in hospice, like they're 98 years old in hospice, or something like that.
Like, there's no defending that. There's no coming back from that. And that has nothing to do with abortion.
Do you think someone that had this picture heard that and it tipped him over the edge that they'd release that picture? Because it was just too aptly timed.
It definitely brought the target into focus.
No, I will agree with Rob. Like, it definitely brought the target into focus. Now, I did find it very curious that everyone knows everything that's said about everything when it's in their favor, and then all of a sudden, like, the entire Democratic Party are like, I have no idea what we said. You know, anytime anyone I have no idea what he said. And they were just like, mum's the word. We won't say anything. And then the picture came out, and all of a sudden it's like instantaneous. Like, everybody's back in the know. You know, this is unforgivable. And now I am not defending his actions. I'm not defending the picture. As I've explained, and I'm not going to explain again, I don't even understand what that means. Like, where I come from, how I grew up, I don't understand that picture.
Right.
Like, what I do understand is, like, you know, like, if you're dressing up as a object of hate, and if you're portraying the victim of hate, whatever it might be, you're probably wrong. Like, dressing up as Hitler and dressing up as someone in a concentration camp, I don't see that as cool.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you want to talk about cowboys and Indians. You know, like, no, like, there's limitations to how you should do that. If you're going to do it, portray it properly. Don't do it, you know, like laissez-faire, cavalier style, like old dude did. Now, what I will say, though, like in Kavanaugh, something that you did when you were a teenager, and we did some dumb stuff when we were teenagers. I'll be the first to admit, like, my dad is looking down on me right now and giving me the old finger wag, because I remember the first time he's like told me, I heard you got a new girlfriend. And, you know, like, and in my mind, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. And he's like, Mary Jane, you know, and I was like, I had no idea he knew. you know, like I was probably 16 when he did that. And I remember that face. And, you know, like, if you look at the guy was at A.J. Diamond High School in Anchorage, Alaska in 1992.
A.J. Diamond.
To Toby Nunn in Georgetown, Texas, 2019. Different guy. A body of work between then and now, a lifetime of experience, a lens that's been covered and colored and changed and replaced and repaired by combat, by divorce, by love, by heartbreak, by childbirth, by child rearing, that has made me a different person, has taken me from being a heathen to a believer, to all the different things that you can put in. I believe that I should not cast a stone at his house. I'm not condoning what he did, but own it.
Right. Like the general.
You know,
like the general. Own it. I messed up.
Own it. Now, all this other stuff, it's like the target was brought into view, and now all of a sudden every long barrel's putting the dope on their scopes. Everyone's like tuning in. The bolt's been brought back to the rear. The 308, the 33 Lapua, and the 5.0 has been slammed into the chamber, and everyone's like, because like, game on. And what we learned is, man, like, that society, that subculture, that location, that geographic area has just been perverted over time by people going there to seek power and fame.
Yeah.
The only time you should look through the lens of today to the past is to learn from it.
Right.
You shouldn't look at that past and take it to punish somebody for today. That lens was completely different. It's a different lens today, and you shouldn't really do that.
That's why a lot of us in our age bracket, I know many that I graduated high school with, and a lot of us go, so glad we didn't have social media and cell phones back when we were in high school, right? Because it would all there are no secrets, nothing. I mean, look at what comedians get thrown off the Oscars because of something they tweeted years ago, or the young college player, the Heisman, that said something when he was 13, or I mean, the Kavanaugh thing isn't a shining, sad example of something that supposedly he was accused of when he was in high school, when he was 16, 17 years old, coming back to this day. So Rob, it's a great point. Looking back, learning, not erasing our past, like ripping down statues and stuff, but looking at those and understand what that meant. And, there's a reason why the Germans kept Dachau. I've walked through those. I've been in that shower room.
Yes.
I've walked through that stuff. And it is a moving experience like no other emotion. There's a reason they kept it. So Germans will never forget what the horrible things were that their countrymen did at one time. And we should have those things to look back on and remember and know, let's not make that mistake again. But I do agree that, yes, it was a bad thing he did. It was probably a bad thing that the Attorney General did, which sounded like he did it when he was real young too, and that's okay. But it seemed like he stepped up and owned it real quick. Now the thing with the Lieutenant Governor was a little bit more recent, 2004. That's not quite past the statute of limitations yet. That's a little too current.
I think they've gotten all the way down the list that the janitor's next for the governorship, isn't he?
Yeah, no, like I saw it meme earlier where it's like, the moment, like, when you find out that you're the next governor and it's like a janitor, like in like the rotunda, you know, like the state house. He's like,
Yeah.
Like the sad part is though, we are looking at this. We're looking at these guys, and we're looking at and gals, and all the things that they're going through, and all the things that they've done. We have presidential candidates that are going to have to answer these questions that all they're doing is just deflecting right now.
Right.
Like, how's Cory Booker?
Exactly.
How's Cory Booker going to answer to spending congressional money, hush money, for multiple offenses?
Right.
Like, dude's a straight up woman beater.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how's Me Too gonna react to him? Now, obviously, they're gonna like support Kamala Harris, and you know they're gonna be like, you know, like how dare he?
Wait, don't we have the stuff out about her now about the guy that says that you know she slept with him and dated her, and that's why he put her on. He put her on all these committees and all this stuff. He goes, yeah, I hooked up with her back in the day when she was a brand new state congressperson.
And he was married. So I mean, and it's even beyond just
Yeah. No,
but talk about one owning it.
He straight out locker room. He was like, yeah, I hit that.
That's what he did. Yeah. But one to talk about owning it. It took a little while. Was Elizabeth Warren, who spent quite a while now, including the famous video of where she called and got her 1024th Native Heritage classified and all that stuff and everything, saying up and down she's never said it, she's never done this. Now all of a sudden the Washington Post goes down to Texas, finds this bar application where she didn't accidentally check the wrong box, where she wrote out the words American Indian and dated it. And now just tonight she's already saying there may be something else coming out soon, which means someone has told her we're about to drop this. Some news outlets told her that we have this, we're about to drop too. So now she's owning it because she's admitted, hey, something else may be coming out where I forgot that I wrote that down. So not that she should get applauded for owning it, but because she has no choice. She's in such a corner because she had the chance to own that, but she hadn't until proof came out that was unequivocal.
Here we are, 3 veterans talking about stolen valor. Right? That's basically what we're talking
Cultural
about.
appropriation, I think, at the perfect definition.
Right. And in our terminology, that's stolen valor.
Yep.
Now, like she's gonna have to atone for that, and like she reaped the benefit, and she's gonna pay the price. And it always brings me back to stolen valor. And the reason it brings me back is like, whatever you did, why is it not good enough?
Right.
I got to tell you, I was just a straight leg infantry dude, non-tabbed, just a dude with an EIB and maybe some Bullwinkle action. Like I didn't get my EIB on the first time. And, I spent time in the mech world. I spent a little bit of time light, and I spent a little time medium. And you know what? While I didn't Jason Bourne it, and I didn't do wild and crazy things, man, I'm proud of what I did.
Right.
And that is good enough for me to put my daughter on my knee and hug her and love her and be like, man, like, and when my grandkids sit on that knee, I'm going to be like, I know I'm a fat old dude. The good thing is I don't have, tattoos that are going to look all weird when I'm old, like Rob does. Yeah, but he's got Longhorn tattoos. That's pretty boss.
Yeah.
But like
no tribal tats.
Yeah, like that's good enough. And when will we start telling our children that it's good enough to just be you?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be everyone's a winner.
You don't have to. You don't have to thank your husband.
It's good enough to be you.
You don't have to thank your husband for being
the best you that you can be, but that's good enough.
Right.
It's good enough to be the guy that did head count at any fob. that guy got targeted more than anybody can legitimately say got targeted.
Right. He never knew when someone was going to come through that white tent.
Right. But he doesn't have to like make some movie like he was the cook on some boat at some point in time and is going to save like some hot Playboy.
He got to go Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal is always a cook.
Sometimes is just good enough.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Being a straight, dirty leg, Matt Burton, saying this for you, is good enough for me.
Don't throw shade on my jump master wings now. Come on now.
No, hey, God bless you, bro. You got that opportunity. You did good things with it. Shard, shout out to my homie. But like, it is good enough to be that. It's good enough to be a guy. There's a guy in our chat room and Facebook right now.
Christopher.
Oh, I was just making sure I read his comment right.
Yeah.
You know, like Lavero. My main man, Lavero, took me in. I slept on this dude's couch. Like, I drove his car. Like, that dude, hard ass, willing to do anything with us, but he was attached to us. And you know what? Everything that he did, he doesn't have to French it up. He doesn't have to do anything because he is who he is, and that was good enough. He was with us, and that was good enough. He earned everything he's got, and he's a stud, and he's my hero. But like, why can't being you be good enough?
Right.
Rachel Dolezal. Like, I get it. You identify that you think this is cooler, or you like this music, or you like this fashion, or you like this style. Like, cool. Like it. And it's, you know, like, your parents aren't that, whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
what Walter Mathers, what's his name?
Sean King.
You know, like, no, I'm talking about like Eminem.
Oh,
yeah. Marshall Mathers.
Marshall Mathers. It's been good enough for him.
Right.
Like, I can't believe I'm like, you know, saying something positive about that dude right now.
But, you know.
But being him is good enough for him.
Right.
Just like, you know, like, we need to get back to that. It's good enough to be you.
So Elizabeth Warren did this at some point in her career, a couple times it looks like, to give herself that little bit of extra edge, a little bit of leg up. Now it's time to pay the piper, because now it's coming home to roost. And, you know, she probably would have still have gotten where she got to without
she ain't paying the piper.
Well, but
don't kid yourself.
But the question is,
she's not gonna walk her into the White House. There's no way. This is gonna.
No.
I mean, she finally admitted. Finally, it took her longer than it probably should have. But she's already at least ahead of Cory Booker.
She is. But she reminds me of when I had my kids and they're apologizing and crying when they're about to get punished, and they're super sorry for doing something. I'm like, are you sorry because you're really sorry, or are you sorry because you got caught? Right?
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't get caught, which now, you know, when you're older, just like me with my parents, now when you're older, they're telling me about this thing or that thing or whatever. They never got caught. So she's had plenty of opportunity. She's went out of her way to make this video. She's went out of her way to call the president on Twitter and on media to say that she is Native American and all that stuff, until she kept getting pushed in the corner, and then now in her own writing, unmistakably, and possibly something new coming out, she has no choice but to fess up and admit it. So
right, but she's not going to pay a real price.
Well, if her reward was she thought maybe getting into the White House, I think she's going to pay that price. She doesn't have a chance in these.
No, like, and if she thought even before this opportunity, she was sadly mistaken. That's just that's unrealistic, and that's not. But she's not going to pay a price. Like, her ambition might take a hit, but she is not going to be financially hurt. She's not going to be politically damaged. She is going to walk away from this scenario with everything that she had as of this morning.
Yeah, she won't gain nothing more, but she'll have what she has for sure.
She ain't losing a thing.
Yeah.
She's not paying any price. Don't kid yourself.
But but Cory Booker probably will, because his pass is going to come back and get him, and Kamala Harris probably will, and you know, many others, because you lie with what's that old saying about lying with snakes and getting bit, right? It's
Lie with dogs, you get fleas.
you lie with dogs, get fleas. Yeah, I mean it's gonna come back and get them. Everything has a price. It just depends on when it comes due. So it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, what we've seen just this week, if you think about Toby, when you think about the last couple years in our show and how we would walk into a Thursday night or before Tuesday night, not knowing what we were going to cover, but we watched the day's news and so much material generated. We're seeing that now this week. Besides the State of the Union, not much coming from the president, but from everywhere else, right? And how much more is going to happen? These opposition groups, as these candidates, these people all throw their hat in the ring and continue to run against each other, they're going to have teams trying to rip each other up. They are going to eat themselves. They are going to just implode, trying to rip each other out and make themselves be the front runner for 2020. And it's going to be sad, but also it's going to be kind of amusing to watch because you know what's going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, like I mean, we saw it with 15 candidates on the stage where they needed 2 separate debates, and it was based on your
tier 1, tier 2.
Yeah, like we saw it. But Rob and I were talking before we came on the air. Tulsi Gabbard, like there's some quality there that's not getting it because people are more concerned with, the political Kardashian, how do you call it? The
darlings, right? The darling. Well, when she first threw her hat in, they were already attacking her. There were some people already attacking her.
It's because she's the first legitimate candidate they have.
I think I would agree so. Unless something comes up, I would agree so. She's not the flavor of the moment like some of the others are.
But she's their first legitimate candidate.
Right.
She's the first votable person.
So she's the threat.
She's the threat. So of course they're throwing shade.
Right.
Like Cory Booker, like what's he gonna say? Like the dude's a wife beater.
Right. Spartacus.
Now he's like, let me give you a little Vanity Fair. Yeah, I got a girlfriend. Yeah, I'd be bragging about that, bro.
Yeah.
I'd be bragging about your personal life right now. Like that's gonna help you.
It's ma'am.
Ma'am.
Nice segue into a topical viral thing there, Rob. Hey, before we get wrapped up, because we've been going a little bit long, we're knocking on about an hour and a half here. I want to make sure we give Rob a chance to just cover any of the topics we didn't, even though we covered a lot of things, as our special in-studio guest, unpaid producer extraordinaire.
Unpaid? Well, he got a beer.
Okay.
And a whiskey.
The topic we were just talking about, the questions I have is will Biden and Hillary jump into the race? What do you think?
I think yes. Biden will if they all start to implode. I think if he thinks he has a shot and can be the savior of the Democrats, he will. I think Hillary's been told don't even. I think she knows she does not have the support. She doesn't have the funding. I don't think she will. I think she's just going to fade out. No, she can't generate the fundraisers. No, none of the ultra left want her anymore. And I think that's what would do her in.
Yeah, I think this last one soured.
And that's got to sting, right? Like, that's got to sting that you got run into the ground physically by a guy that lives on Diet Coke and Big Mac.
I mean, she's had 2 chances, right? She's had look, she had 2 chances.
You got physically ramrodded by a dude that's like fast fooding it.
Well, she had a husband that did the same thing, but she had 2 chances. She went against Obama and lost. She went against Trump and lost. She has burned out the sympathy card of being the scorned wife, which is really the only reason why she got to where she was. Let's call it what it is. She never would have even become a senator or anything if she was not the scorned wife who was cheated on. And all that stuff. That she had the sympathy vote all those years. People they don't even today's voters don't even know what that is. They don't even care about that.
No, they forget.
So her 15 minutes is 30 minutes and it's gone.
I love how they always talk about the love story of the Clintons. They met in law school and they had these ideals, and then they skip the part where her very first job as a lawyer, she got disbarred for ethical violations in Watergate.
Right.
Immediately disbarred. You didn't even hold a license for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think they're gonna, we're gonna watch tigers eat their young, just like we saw in Virginia, where all of a sudden people are like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what he said. He's got a picture of what? And, you know, like now the janitor's got the best chance at leading that. Look forward to it. It's going to be great cannon fodder. It's going to be great stuff. But grateful for Enlisted Nine for always supporting us. Grateful for our big supporters. Rob's wearing a pair of 5.56 right now. Put them up. Put them up. Some 5.56 whoobies.
Oh, whoobies. We don't have
big
them.
Big shout out to Rick. Big shout out to Tim. Tim's overseas throwing down some work right now.
There we go. We need whoobies as a sponsor. Just saying. You know, they could always
Rick,
happen.
just saying, Rick. No big deal. You know, like.
So Tim is
no
off.
Big deal.
Tim is off
we
doing
wear the shoes.
Yep.
I've
heard a lot about him.
Hurricane Harvey as a result of my woobies.
I've heard a lot about him. I've seen pictures of him on planes and stuff. I'm just saying, but yeah, the no.
Hashtag where your woobies at?
There we go. Yeah. So thanks. You know, definitely Enlisted Nine and everyone. Thanks for Rob coming in tonight, man. Appreciate you venturing into the Southern Studio. And
anytime.
And always welcome.
There's a good barber right down the hall, but you really can't use much of that. So
yeah,
I'm with you.
They do the hot shit.
He does make nice hats though. But we should get him on again sometime. We should get him on sometime. Anyways, hey, anything else, Rob? Before we let you go, because you are the guest of honor. You are in the circle. Just
never believe anything you hear and only half of what you see.
There we go. That's he's got some you got some very good sayings, man. You could write a book of just, you know, the world according to Rob, the unpaid producer. That's just your new nickname. Oh. Toby, anything from you, brother?
So hopefully Gina, you know, gets well soon.
Yes, yeah, she wants to get on the show.
It's been 2 weeks now, like
she's pretty sick.
She's near death.
She had that big fundraiser, the big gala, and did great, and she's putting a lot of stuff up, but she is doing it while trying to recover. And she just, as she told me tonight, you know, when she comes on air and comes on screen, she wants to be on top of her game, and she wants to make sure she's there.
I mean, like, Gina's turning into our Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
So, like, when Gina gets healthy, look forward to having her on the show. We got Rick coming on. We got some great guys coming on the show here in the next month and a bit. It's exciting to be at home for a little bit so we can do the show, and
that's it.
You know, like, it's time for you to come back south. And
I was just there a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I got a trip coming up next month. It won't be your direction, but we got to touch base on that. But it's heading a little west. But we can chat about that sometime. So
well, shout out to the Texas Ball Hockey Association, because we will be playing in Vegas at the end of the month.
Nice. There we go.
So we'll be G6 in our way there.
It ain't G6 unless I'm there with you. But
well, make it so, my brother.
There we go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I know we went long, hour and a half, but we had Rob, the unpaid producer, in studio, and a lot of stuff to talk about from this week. And we really appreciate you tuning in this week and every week. Make sure you tune in next Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern, here on Stu and the Nunn. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your people you don't like. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and listen everywhere, watch everywhere, and share it everywhere. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Rob. And with that, I think we are going to be calling it a good night here. How's that sound?
Chris Lavero, you're on the show soon.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we just get our guests right from the chat room. I like that. But there we go. All right, everybody have a good night. You guys have a good night. We're out. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, PoohHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.